morning. It is Tuesday, April 14th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Palestinian refugees continue being gunned down and bombed in the ISIS-besieged camp of Yarmouk in Syria. That according to UNRWA reports, yet the world fails to react. A year after 276 girls were kidnapped from the remote town of Chibok in northeastern Nigeria by Boko Haram, their whereabouts remain unknown. And later on the show, on a lighter note, it is official. Reality television star Kim Kardashian and her superstar rapper husband, Kanye West, are in Israel. We will tell you exactly why. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi. We begin in Yarmouk, where Palestinian refugees are being starved, bombed, and gunned down like animals, according to eyewitness reports, since April 1st. Now, the refugee camp on the edge of Damascus, just a few miles from the palace of Bashar al-Assad, has been overrun by Islamic State militants who have begun a reign of terror, detentions, shootings, beheadings, and the rest. Hundreds of refugees are believed to have been killed in what Ban Ki-moon has called the deepest circle of hell. UNRWA Commissioner General Pierre Conbul and another senior UN official visited the Syrian capital to find ways to ease the plight of some 18,000 people estimated to be trapped in the camp, which has been under government siege since 2013. Joined in studio by I-24 News senior Middle East analyst Ali Waqid. Ali, good morning to you. And before we break this down, let's first listen to what the head of the UN agency responsible for Palestinian refugees had to say during his visit.
Today we remain very worried for the refugees and the civilians who are inside Yarmouk. We are very determined to provide assistance to those who have decided temporarily to leave the camp itself and to find shelter elsewhere. And we will take very seriously the needs also in Yalda and Babila. We're very determined to be able to respond to the needs of the people who have reached there. The situation in Yarmouk and what the population has gone through in Yarmouk over recent years, with the clear suffering that has resulted from the presence of armed groups inside the camp, is something that has not only worried us, but of course we have worked very closely with Gapar to try and address the needs of the population.
We are also joined via Skype by UNRWA spokesperson Chris Gunness. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And also on the phone by member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council, Dimitri Diliani. Dimitri, good morning to you. But Chris, I would like to start with you because this has been going on since April 1st. It's a devastating situation. We're looking at horrifying numbers in Yarmouk of 18,000 people trapped. Supposedly the only aid agency that can get in, and I believe that's UNRWA, has reported its water delivery personnel. A man there has been shot to death, people trapped. Is there any type of inclination to create safe passage? Is UNRWA making strides in trying to convince the world to try and flip around the situation right now and at least make safe passage for aid agency to go into the camp?
Well, Yael, that's a very good question. Can I first update you on UNRWA's response? Because we have had access now, facilitated in part by the Syrian government, but also by local leaders, religious and political, on the ground, on the outskirts of Yarmouk. So in this place called Yelda, and there's also a place called Babila, which Pierre referred to in that clip you just played. Right. There are 3,000 people who have managed to escape from Yarmouk, and our initial response is a humanitarian effort towards these people. So we've been taking them all the things which freshly displaced people need, so blankets, food, medicine, water, mattresses, etc. And we hope in the coming days to intensify our efforts towards them. Now, at the same time and in the background, we have been having contacts, discrete contacts, indirect and direct, with the groups that we need to have contact with, such that we can get access into the camp, because there are three prongs, if you like, three parts of our response. First of all, to try and get assistance to people in the camp, because there are people who want to stay in their homes. I mean, terrible as it is, these are, after all, their homes. Secondly, to get aid to people who want temporarily to be relocated. And then thirdly, to try and relocate, to get people evacuated, those civilians who want to leave, if that answers the last part of your question.
No, completely. It just begs the other question of be evacuated, where to? But when you said you are, in indirect and direct and in negotiation with various groups there, that meaning as groups such as well, the groups that are fighting over control in Yarmouk?
Well, it does. I mean, there's not a lot that I can really say about this on air, but let me tell you that, of course, UNRWA has worked in battlefields on many occasions since our founding over 65 years ago. So we're well used to working amid conflict, amid hostility, amid civil war. So yes, directly and indirectly, we are talking to the groups we need to talk to in order to secure access into the camp. Now, of course, things are very delicate, things are very dangerous, and you can imagine the sorts of complications that there are. But we will do what we have to do in order to assist the population inside Yarmouk. I don't want to raise expectations at all and say that we're going to be able to do that, but we're certainly pushing very hard.
No, Chris, do stay with me, because it seems right now that UNRWA is one of the few agencies trying to make any kind of effort to get people out or to assist people inside that, what Ban Ki-moon has referred to as the circle of hell. Dimitri Diliani with me on the phone. I have to say, though, you know, there's a fascinating article in The Guardian yesterday about the fact that, you know, it seems like the world is silent when it comes to Palestinian refugees, especially in an area such as Syria, that because of the fact that it's not Israel bombing this time around, there doesn't seem to be much interest in the Arab world to try and assist and help the Palestinian refugees of Yarmouk, who really seem to be like, you know, third-class citizens from every respect there. Is there anything that can be done? Well, first of all, your reaction to that, Dimitri.
Well, it's very sad that the common denominator of the way you put your question is the Palestinians are the victims. And honestly, we don't care who covers what. We just want our people to be safe. And this has been the challenge for our leadership and taking most of the Palestinian leadership's efforts, how to make this happen, how to keep ourselves out of the conflict, first of all. And the PLO has distanced itself from the conflict in Syria and other Arab countries, despite the fact that there are some factions, minor factions, some of them are even fictitious factions, that have claimed to be on one side or the other, mainly on the side of the government, the Syrian government. But we read that these atrocities push more for a peaceful solution for the Palestinian cause, because it seems more than ever that these problems and victimizing the Palestinian people has been continuous since 1948. We've been played as a card in almost every other conflict there is in the region. And we as people, we're sick and tired of it. We just want peace. We want our state. We want our people in our state. And to get all these atrocities over with. And going through that, we have major obstacles that we have to overcome. One of them is the Israeli right-wing government, to Arab governments and organizations that take us as a card, and they try to pull us towards their conflicts to gain popularity on our expense, on our account, on our blood.
But the cooperation with Assad is another issue that one needs to, you know, consider. And Chris Gunness, that's my question to you. You know, when it comes to the administration in Syria and UNRWA, you know, clearly Pierre has also been speaking from, you know, from Damascus, Yarmouk, you know, basically in that. Is there cooperation from the Syrian administration, apropos what Dimitri just said, to try and help the refugees of Yarmouk?
There is indeed, and can I say that historically, going back to 1948, the Syrian government and the Syrian people, until this conflict, I should add, have perhaps been the most generous of all the host governments in the region. Palestinians in Syria have access to government service, for example, and they were well integrated into Palestinian society. In fact, Yarmouk was perhaps the iconic place where such integration took place. It was like the Notting Hill of Damascus, where Syrians and Palestinians rubbed along together extraordinarily. Can I, though, very quickly, Yael, address the point you raised with Dimitri, which is, you know, when Israel bombs, the world goes crazy, and when, you know, the government in Syria does something. I can tell you, and you know well, Yael, I have been extraordinarily vocal on the question of Yarmouk. We launched a new media campaign last March in which 40 million people expressed their outrage about what was happening in Yarmouk, and I have been all over the airways. Pierre Krembil briefed the Secretary General and effectively called the Security Council into session, an emergency session, which Pierre briefed the Council in. So this notion that when Israel bombs, the world goes crazy, and when bad things happen to Palestinians in Syria, the world is silent. That's not entirely fair, and I'm sure you appreciate that, Yael.
No, I appreciate that, but, you know, case in point, it's not that much that we're hearing in the international media. This is not something specifically towards you, Chris. It's, you know, it's looking at a piece in The Guardian that raised that issue itself.
I read that piece in The Guardian, and I think it's an incredibly unfair piece. I don't think it's true that there's been silence on Yarmouk. In fact, I've just been in touch with The Guardian. I offered them a piece by Pierre Kremble yesterday, which he personally wrote and which ended up on CNN.com. But I offered that piece to The Guardian's been very, very unfair in publishing that piece. I mean, of course, they're free to publish it. In comment is free. It's an excellent slot on The Guardian. But this idea that there has been silence on Yarmouk is really, really unfair. And I take it, you know, personally, because I, of all people, have been screaming the Yarmouk story from the rooftop, much more so, for example, than any spokesman from the PLO who you've now got on your program.
No, entirely, Chris, but I mean, putting that aside at this point, I'm looking at the situation right now in Yarmouk, okay, and UNRWA clearly, and all the facts that you mentioned. It is a clear point that, you know, the world is not doing much to help the Palestinians of Yarmouk. It can be covered in the media. There's, you know, requests to do safe passage. At the end of the day, we're looking at 18,000 people that are trapped, and it's not on the main point of the agenda. But do stay with us, the two of you, for a minute, because I want to turn to Ali for a second. What does this spell? You know, at the end of the day, Yarmouk also is very close. I mean, this is Damascus. This is the battle, you know, close to the palace of Bashar al-Assad. Anybody, you know, is there any interest to help these people or get them out? And what happens to them if they do, you know, if they do flee? Where did they end up?
I want to comment on what Dimitri said. Dimitri said that the Palestinian leadership is well aware not to be pulled into this conflict, whether at the side of the regime or of the opposition. But when the envoy of Palestinian President Majdalani is in Damascus and say that he expresses at the name of the Palestinian leadership all the understanding to all the measures that were taken or might be taken by the Syrian regime, according to some analysis, it could be a green light from the Palestinian leadership to the Syrian regime that he can launch the big attack in Yarmouk that everybody is expecting. And Yael, there won't be any solution as long as the Islamic State and the jihadist group are in Yarmouk and are passing to the offensive. They were very passive in Yarmouk. It is true that the camp was already under the control of the rebels for a long time, but the Islamic State, unlike Jabhat al-Nusra, lacks tactics and thinks confrontation. And this is why the regime will be obliged to take tougher measures, and tougher measures mean more suffering for the people in Yarmouk. So there will be in the coming days a window of opportunity in which people can be evacuated from the camp, but it is part of a general rehearsal, maybe before the direct confrontation between the regime and the Islamic State.
And the Islamic State, with the civilians caught in the middle. And you know, Chris, one last thing to you: is there? Do you agree with Ali that in the next coming days we might see, though, some form of a lift up and some sort of an, you know, according to the discussions that you said the UNRWA is having in the next coming days of getting people out of there?
Yes, I mean, I cannot be prematurely optimistic, but I would certainly like to think that with the pressures of the world community on the correct parties on the ground, political, diplomatic, commercial, economic, perhaps spiritual and religious, we will be able to get some kind of access. But I would hate to, you know, we need to manage expectations here because things are dire and the situation with the warring, you know, factions in the camp are very tense. So, yes, we hope we'll get access, but, you know, I can't promise anything and I want to limit expectations. But I would like your PLO spokesman to comment on this idea of Mr. Majdalani in Damascus, reportedly, and it was just reports, backing a green light for a Syrian attack on the camp.
Dimitri, if you heard us.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Hello?
that would have been a question from Chris Gunnis regarding the Palestinian. Hello?
Yeah, I can't hear you. Can you repeat that, please?
Chris, why don't you shoot your question again?
I'm specifically asking about Ahmed Majdalani's press conference in Syria, which was widely reported as the PLO giving a green light to back a Syrian military assault on Yarmouk. Would you like to deny that that is the PLO's position? And if so, explain what Mr. Majdalani actually did say.
Well, what Mr. Zalani said in Arabic, and I heard the press conference, that the fate of the camp is in the hands of the Syrian government. Now, I haven't reached an analysis of his findings. Why did he get to that point, especially when PLO armed factions are ready to enter the camp? And I'm pretty sure there would be more. There will be less violent in the fight concerning the civilians. I believe there was some difficulties, but at the end of the day, you have to choose between two evils. And if you may receive that as a green light, but no clear green light was given. But choosing between two evils, in other words, keeping it under ISIS and their brutal methods, or having the camp being subjected to less brutal methods as used by the government, probably we would pick the lesser evil. It's a very hard choice, and something has to be taken, because under the current circumstances, with the Yarmouk being under siege and ISIS. Honestly, I don't think anybody can tell accurately the atrocities that the people are going through right now.
Chris.
To take this opportunity to deny that it is the PLO's position to back a military assault on the camp? And would you like to assert that a military assault on the camp is hardly going to be in the interest of protecting Palestinians inside Yarmouk?
Well, what is clear right now, and I'm not a spokesperson for this, what is clear about this is that having military action taken against ISIS in the camp is the lesser evil in this case, and keeping ISIS in and the camp is under siege. I believe that this is the case. I don't know what difficulties Mr. Delaney found when he was there in terms of having this resolved by our forces. But anyway, this is the case, and we have to deal with it.
But for gentlemen, the case of the lesser evil or not, I'd like to to finish up, sadly, on a slightly, I can't call it an optimistic note, as you said, Chris, the fact that maybe there will be some sort of an understanding of open passages or aid over the course of the next several days. That said, we will keep updating you as to the situation in Yarmouk. As mentioned, a place where Ban Ki-moon, even referred to as the lowest circle of hell, 18,000 people trapped, Palestinian refugees in what has remained, or what remains Syria nowadays, as we move along. Yemen's president in exile, Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi, has appointed his former prime minister to be the country's vice president and rule in his absence. The president fled the country last month as Iranian-supported Shiite rebels known as Houthis seized the Yemeni capital Sana'a and is currently in Saudi Arabia. Now, meanwhile, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, U.S. forces aboard the USS Sterett aborted a Panamanian freighter suspected of delivering Iranian weapons to Houthi rebels in Yemen this month, in the first show of direct U.S. involvement in the conflict that pits Saudi Arabia against Iran in a potentially explosive proxy war. Still with me in studio is Ali Waked, I-24 News senior Middle East analyst, and Paula Slier, freshly out of Yemen, the bureau chief of Russia Today. Paula, good to have you with us. Before we break this down, let's take a quick look at the report as to what is happening in Yemen today and break it down from there.
Growing international concern over the conflict in Yemen as U.S. officials said they will back Saudi military efforts in the country. According to a White House spokesman, the Pentagon will provide intelligence and analysis services to the Saudi fighter jets. The announcement comes as Saudi Arabia attempts to expand its operations in Yemen to include ground troops. In a visit in Pakistan on Sunday, the Saudi Minister of Religious Affairs also stressed his country's need of support from surrounding countries.
We hope Pakistan will stand by the Saudi Arabian kingdom under all circumstances, because Saudi Arabia is home to the two holy mosques, and Pakistan is the second largest Muslim country. So what's between us and Pakistan is paramount.
But Pakistan rejected a Saudi appeal for military support of its coalition, highlighting a growing internal tension in the Middle East over the conflict in Yemen. Meanwhile, Egyptian news sources claim aerial support from Cairo is imminent and that the country is considering joining the Saudi coalition. But as Saudi military officials continue to push towards a ground operation, condemnation poured in from the Iranian front.
Change your wrong ways. You tried military intervention in Lebanon and realized you had made a mistake. You tried it in Syria and realized you had made a mistake. You realized you had made a mistake in Iraq. You will realize very soon that you've made a mistake in Yemen, too.
And in the last of the strikes by Saudi Arabia on Yemen for the past 2 weeks, warplanes targeted the presidential palace in Aden on Sunday. The palace, much like large swathes of Yemen, is controlled by military forces loyal to the former President Saleh and the Iranian-allied Houthi rebels.
Paula Sleer, Russia Today, Middle East Bureau Chief. When I say freshly out of Yemen, you know, you joined an airlift clearly, but you just returned. You returned from the country. Yemen's president in exile, that we know, but we also this morning a report, actually, which is the thing that's interesting. Everybody collecting to Yemen. I have to make the connection. Let's start first with the situation, what you saw.
Well, I had joined a Russian emergency airlift. We brought back some 300 people on 2 Russian civilian airplanes. The whole operation took about 18 hours. The day before, the planes had actually gone to Sana'a and been forced to turn back because of the situation, and they didn't get clearance in terms of airspace. And there was the concern on the way there. We flew from Cairo that the same would happen. It didn't happen, but there was certainly a huge amount of urgency on the ground. And actually, while people were still coming onto the plane, there was this massive explosion just to the south of the airport. And I was talking to the pilot, and he said because passengers were taking so much time to come to the airport, we had actually overstayed our welcome, in inverted commas, and we had to get out as soon as possible. The airport is in ruins. It's still functioning, but there's broken glass everywhere. There are boards and parts of the building that are completely destroyed.
Metaphor to whatever is left. And Ali Waqid here, we constantly discuss over the course of the last several weeks of, the countries that they're breaking apart or whatever is left in, from Yemen right now. Speaking though of Russian airlifts and whatnot, there's supposed to be a UN resolution that is going to be tried to be passed today of trying to, I think, I'm going to ad-lib this, destabilize the Houthis and whatnot. Russia, there are many arguments. Will Russia veto this type of UN resolution? And the involvement in that area at the end of the day, is a big battle between Saudi and Iran. I'm putting it very, very simply right now. That Russia is heavily involved in as well, isn't it?
Well, Russia's policy has really been to respect the sovereignty of each country. It has repeatedly said that the Saudi airstrikes are illegal. They don't have the backing of the Security Council, and interfering, again in inverted commas, in another country's affairs is not the way to go. Russia also points to double standards. The example has been made, for example, regarding Ukraine. We've spoken about this a lot, and the Russians have pointed out that the international community has refused to recognize the sovereignty of people in the east of the country, but on the other hand is very quick to support international interference and aerial bombings in Yemen. So the Russians keep making that point that there's double standards in terms of how the international community is behaving.
Well, double standards for the international community, I think that's something that can go, can be referred to in many ways to this region. But Ali, I'm looking with you at the situation in Yemen, and it's the big powers at play that keep being mentioned over this morning, be it the UN resolution, but also, the fact that Russia has lifted the ban on the selling S-300 missiles to Iran, which people in the country that we're sitting in Israel are immediately saying, well, this goes to show that Russia is trying to aid Iran, which is trying to interfere in Yemen, which is trying to get weapons also to their proxies in Yemen. Where is this heading, in your educated opinion?
No, regarding the meeting of the Security Council, I'm not sure that the Russians will veto or not veto the resolution, but there is no doubt that once the Americans declared that they are taking the side of the Arab coalition against the Houthis, Iran allies in Yemen, it is clear that the Russian administration is taking the side of the Iranians in this conflict. And Yael, the most important thing that the Iranian leadership freed from the negotiations with the international community regarding the nuclear file are deeply and more involved in what is happening in Yemen. The reports that the ship was arrested carrying weapons to Yemen. The story that revolutionary guards commanders were killed or arrested in Yemen, that Hezbollah, the Lebanese Hezbollah fighters were being witnessed in Yemen. I don't know whether all or part of these reports are true, but there is no doubt that the Iranians, after the negotiations March 31 finished, are more active in the Yemenite conflict. You should see the media, the Iranian media, Hezbollah media, Rouhani statements, and the talks between Iran, Pakistan, between Iran and Russia, in order to try to build maybe not a military, but a diplomatic coalition versus the military coalition led by Saudi Arabia and supported by the Americans.
And supported by the Americans. I mean, Paula, wouldn't you agree, though, that this is a battle on the play field, or should we say on the chessboard that is the Middle East, of two big powers, be it Russia and the United States, and their proxy supporters or their proxy armies in many ways?
It certainly is. I mean, what we're witnessing here is just indicative of a major Middle East war. It has the potential to really flare up to an extent perhaps that the Syria war did not, that the Egyptian war did not. And so
why is Yemen so much more dangerous? Why is everybody looking at it that way?
Well, I think because you have the powers of, so you have Saudi Arabia interested, you have Iran interested, you have Saudi Arabia, of course, increasingly concerned that they're going to use their status in that part of the world, and particularly now vis-a-vis the negotiations over the Iranian talks. That has huge implications. Saudi Arabia is very afraid that it's going to lose its standing as America's main ally in the region, that the United States is now going to have an option of trading with Iran, and Saudi's standing in terms of a provider of oil is going to be lessened. Their stated objective, of course, of the airstrikes is to stop the expansion of the Houthis. But at the same time, what people on the ground are very, very afraid of is that you have this whole Sunni-Shia clash. You have the potential of it spilling over elsewhere into the region. And what I wanted to mention in terms of what I was able to fathom being on the ground just for a few hours is the humanitarian situation. Right. When I spoke to people were saying there's no fuel. The soldiers are using the fuel. People said it was incredibly difficult to get to the airport. I spoke to an Italian citizen who'd been trapped in his hotel for 2 weeks. He couldn't get out. This was the first time he'd made it out, and he just came to the airport and was waiting at the airport hoping that there would be an airlift out. I was speaking to a lot of women and children. A lot of the foreigners are medical workers and wives, foreign citizens, terrified. People are literally terrified, and there are reports that there are still hundreds more foreign citizens in the country. People don't know where they are. People don't know how to make access with them. They don't know how to bring them out.
And I think irrespective of what happens, as we just saw the situation in Yarmouk, it's the people on the ground that are trapped within these conflicts that we tend to, well, not forget, but that we have to remember first and foremost. Paula Slater, thank you for being with us. Ali, same to you. When we get back, a year since nearly 300 schoolgirls were abducted by Boko Haram in Nigeria. Their whereabouts still remain unknown. Just stay with us. We'll take a look at where this story stands. And of course, first the news. Good morning. It is still Tuesday, April 14th, 2015. This is still the morning edition, I-24 News, the place you should be. Why? Because this is where you meet Ami Kaufman every morning to give you whatever you missed on death, destruction, and mayhem around the world.
Here I am. Good morning, Yael. How you doing?
Ta-da!
Okay, we're going to start with Human Rights Watch, who has another potential embarrassing report on Israel. This time they're saying that Israeli settlers are profiting from Palestinian child labor. As we see that Haaretz is bringing. The claim is in their 74-page report that these settlements in the Jordan Valley are employing children as young as 11, paying them very low wages, putting them in dangerous environments.
That should go well for Israel's PR.
It's not going to go too well.
No. Yeah.
According to the report, these Palestinian kids are dropping out of school. they're cleaning and packing asparagus, tomatoes, and eggplants, and sweet peppers, and stuff like that.
I think, all across the Middle East, we were discussing refugees at the beginning of the show, but, yet another, not just a damning report, but just a sad, terrifying situation.
But just to at least give some of the rebuttal of the Jordan Valley settlements, they say that it's a horrific lie, no justification for employing children, not just morally and legally, but financially as well. So they say never happened.
No mass. It's not happened. Okay.
Moving on to Europe, Jean-Marie Le Pen. This is, I think, one of the juiciest stories coming out of Europe today. It's like a battle between father and daughter. Jean-Marie Le Pen says he won't run as a National Front candidate in France. This is after basically his daughter kind of told him, I'm not really going to let you run because of the stuff that you've been saying recently in the press and some recent interviews where he has refused to deny that his, back away from his statements that the Nazi gas chambers were a small detail of history.
Small, tiny.
Just a small, tiny detail.
Minute. On this specific week, where Israel marks Holocaust. I just want to say that, trailing back on this story, as a parent, Ami, doesn't this terrify you?
It does. It does. I hope I don't get to this kind of stage.
To that stage where your daughter doesn't let you do stuff.
Exactly.
But although you might just be in it now.
But he kind of hit back at her, and he said that if you want to support someone who really identifies with my views, the real views of the National Front, support my granddaughter, not my daughter.
Oh my God!
Who's also a budding politician.
It's like an American soap opera.
It's one of the best dramas I've ever seen recently in politics. It's really, really good.
Love the French.
Jumping off the continent to Britain, The Guardian has a new poll out, putting the Tories a whopping 6 points ahead of Labour and Ed Miliband.
I wonder if that's because Ed Miliband has 2 kitchens. That's the one thing I know.
Really? I never knew that.
You see?
That's probably it.
Yeah, Ed Miliband has 2 kitchens. Conservatives saying, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So they were pretty much at each about 33%.
Kind of like the Israeli elections.
It is, and now the Tories are at 39%, and Labour drops down to 33%. The Lib Dems are at 8%. Nick Clegg and Nigel Farage of UKIP is down to 7%.
But the interesting bit about this, and I'm wondering out loud, being of course, I'm going to expose you and out you on the show that you are related to the Brits. You're being married to a British woman. But if let's say Cameron stays in place, I think the interesting bit would be, will he make good on his agenda, which is to actually get or try to put a referendum through and get Britain out of the EU.
The EU. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a house of cards.
At least when it comes to the economy, also in this survey, the people that answered said that they agree that on the economic issues, they prefer Cameron and George Osborne, the Chancellor, over the equivalent of Labour.
Labour.
Yeah, 44%.
Yeah.
By large numbers.
Europe for you, everybody going right. Yes.
Another election. Hillary Clinton announced her presidency bid 2 days ago.
Yes.
But we have another contender who joined yesterday, Marco Rubio. The Republican.
I just love saying his name,
Marco Rubio. Yes. Son of Cuban immigrants, senator from Florida, a Republican senator. He's joining the race. He says that he's the best person to lead the United States into another American country. He's 43. He's very young. Speaks, of course.
I love that you said that. Okay.
Yes.
It's my age. Yes.
There you go. You should run.
Yeah, I should run.
He speaks, of course, fluent Spanish. And he took a little jab yesterday at Clinton, just the day after she announced it.
It's on.
He said, just yesterday, a leader from yesterday began a campaign for president by promising to take us back to yesterday. Yesterday is over, and we're never going back.
No, but it's a valid point, and I mean, you also, as an American, I have to say, if we'll be looking at a race of Hillary Clinton versus Jeb Bush,
right.
Which I think it's almost like, can we move forward, people?
Right.
Can we have some other players in the game?
That's what a lot of the Republicans are hoping for, and he also took a jab at Jeb Bush, saying that I live in a country where the son of a bartender and a maid can have the same dreams and the same future as those who come from power and privilege, meaning, of course, the Bush family.
Of course, exactly. It doesn't have to constantly be the Ivy Leaguers.
Right. Do we have one time for one last one?
Yes.
Cops that are killing black people in America. Of course, this pretty much happens almost on a daily basis. The last one that happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, happened with a 73-year-old insurance man who turned to deputy because he's a rich man and he donated money to the police department thousands of dollars a year and equipment, which made him a deputy sheriff. This is what they call a pay-to-play cop. And what happened is that
pay-to-play cop.
Pay-to-play cop. There are these people that donate money, and they're allowed to get into uniform and go be cops.
That's a practice in America.
Now, what happened with this in this case is that they were pursuing someone who was a suspect, and when he took out his taser and shot him, he noticed that it was a gun. He shot him with his gun instead of a taser and killed a man. So that's we're going to end with that.
Role play. Yeah, we're going to end with home of the, what is it, land of the free, home of the brave. I always get that one wrong.
Right.
But we're allowed to. Ami Kaufman, great stuff. Thank you. You're locked in studio with us. And of course, we'll chat in the next hour as you move along. Moving along to Nigeria. A year ago today, Boko Haram militants entered a school in the Nigerian city of Chibok, ripped through and basically kidnapped roughly 300 teenage girls from their beds and took them captive. They're vowing to marry them off to jihadist fighters and sell them into slavery. The world briefly raised an outcry, with politicians, celebrities, first ladies, and activists holding protest marches demanding their return across the globe. In the year since, there has been no progress on releasing them, despite several promises by the government that never bore fruit. Well, a coalition of African countries have made gains against the group Boko Haram. In the battlefield, the abducted girls remain missing. And to discuss the situation in Nigeria, we're joined in studio by Amnesty International Israel spokesperson Roni Margalit. Roni, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us. Before we break this down, let's watch a report on the 1 year anniversary, a very sad anniversary, to the abduction of these girls.
Over 100 members of the Bring Back Our Girls group gathered in Nigeria's capital city of Abuja to hold a prayer session in commemoration of the 1 year anniversary of the missing Chibok girls. Boko Haram, whose name roughly translated as Western education is sinful, has killed thousands and displaced some 1.5 million people during a 6-year campaign to carve out an Islamic State in northern Nigeria. The 200 school girls, most of them Christian, are still being held by Boko Haram since April 14, 2014.
For both Muslims and Christians, this is an opportunity for us to reconnect with God, to ask for God to give us the empowerment to be able to continue with the advocacy, and if possible, to have a divine intervention that will enable the girls to be brought back as quickly as possible.
In May last year, Boko Haram militants offered a prisoner swap to release the girls, but the proposal was rejected by the government. Former President Goodluck Jonathan has been blasted at home and abroad for his slow response to the kidnapping and for his inability to quell the violence by the Islamist militants, seen as the biggest security threat to Africa's biggest economy. In his first speech since he was elected president last month, former Nigerian Major General Muhammadu Buhari, who was due to take office at the end of May, said he would spare no effort to defeat Boko Haram. Buhari, himself a Muslim from the north, also branded exiting President Jonathan's reliance on Chad to suppress the insurgency before the election as a national disgrace. He has promised to restore the territorial integrity of Africa's most populous nation. But in the meantime, the girls remain missing.
Also joined from Lagos, Nigeria, by freelance journalist Samuel Okocha. Samuel, good morning to you. Where does the search or the battle to bring these girls back stand, really, in fact, on the ground in Nigeria today?
Yeah, very good morning. Thanks for having me. The stand when it comes to bringing these girls back remains very cloudy right now. I do know that the military has made significant gains in crushing Boko Haram in the north. They've recovered a number of territories earlier captured by the militant group. But to rescue the girls, it's very difficult to say what progress has been made. Right now, the information surrounding the rescue of the girls remains very cloudy, and members of the Bring Back Our Girls group has highlighted this. They're actually going to protest to demand the true state of things. And so it's difficult to really say what is happening, with about the rescue of the girls. The president-elect has also said, in as much as he's ready to tackle Boko Haram differently, he cannot assure of the rescue of the girls.
Right, and I think, his election, actually, part of his platform and election campaign was the promise to release them. Time will tell if he is, if this new administration can make it happen against Boko Haram. Roni Margalit, also with us, obviously, from Amnesty International. It's a devastating story. It's a campaign that went viral a year ago, that every celebrity on the face of the planet held up this card. Not much really happened with that. Does the world still remember? And what is Amnesty trying to, raise awareness to maybe gain some more international, I'm asking you, international assistance to get these girls out?
Right, so first I want to say that Amnesty reports that released right now is actually revealed that there are around 2,000 girls that have been abducted. This is only part of these stories, and it also revealed with testimonies and stories that provide more information, not just about the abduction, but also forced marriage, a lot of cases of rape. And very horrible stories. One of the testimonies was by 19 years old that attended her friend's wedding in a village, and she told Amnesty International researchers that she was abducted together with the bride, her sister, and the bride's sister, and they were forced to marry to Boko Haram fighters, and were practiced. They were taught how to fight and had to participate in attack on their own village. So it's not only revealing those numbers, but also give really shed light about very cruel and horrible stories about the girls and what happened to them, what's going on with them today.
What's going on with them on the ground. And when it comes to, and Samuel, same to you though, when it comes to the international community, is there an outcry in Nigeria of trying to get some international assistance to, I don't want to say fight Boko Haram, but try and release in these, horrific numbers that we're hearing, not just the 200 that we remember from last year, but it's 2,000 women?
2,000 girls, and also mass killing of boys and men,
and children.
Around 5,000 people.
Is there a hope that the new president, Samuel, can do something, or is there some form of a request from the people of Nigeria to see international intervention? Samuel?
The people in Nigeria have actually made the outcry many months ago, and for international intervention, and that was what led countries like the US, Israel, the UK to send their teams to Nigeria. But along the line, it appeared there was lack of cooperation between the government and these international partners, and so we heard nothing again about that cooperation. Right now, the hope lies in the new president, Muhammadu Buhari, who has promised to fight Boko Haram. And in the course of fighting this Boko Haram, there is this seeming hope that the girls might just be rescued. But then again, the president-elect has also made it clear that people should not expect magic from him. So it's a mixture of hopelessness and maybe hope.
Yeah, I mean, which one has to maintain in every aspect of life. That goes without saying. Sadly, I think in Nigeria, and for the women and girls and the children and the boys kidnapped by Boko Haram, that holds more water. What is being done in the international arena, Roni?
So Amnesty claims, of course, that the international community have to be involved and call Nigerian authorities to take care of the situation and to protect civilians who get killed. And we tried as much to spread, to show the world, and this is what this report is part of, to actually shed light about what's going on in Nigeria and what are those acts of Boko Haram are. When we talked both about abduction of girls and women, and also about mass killing of boys and men. We have many testimonies also about cruel executions of boys, very harsh stories. And we try as much as we can to approach to any kind of involvement by the international community.
Is there, though, involvement, other than, condemning this by the international community, is there any other involvement? That's what I'm asking.
At the moment, there are a lot of campaigning and lobbying for this, but we don't see any active role, not by Nigerian authorities to stop this, or nor other countries.
No other countries. And the sad thing, and I'm stating the obvious, obviously, that if a year ago 200 white girls would have been abducted somewhere, I'm assuming the situation of it, or the attempt internationally to try and solve it, would probably be quite different. Samuel, in Nigeria, I want to thank you for being with us. Honi, thank you for bringing this very important, sad report to our attention this morning. And of course, when we get back, something different. Not on a lighter note, Israel hosting an international conference of the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. We're going to sit down with the group's executive secretary. Stay with us. First, though, as in every morning, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. Welcome back. It is still Tuesday, April 14th, 2015. This is still the morning edition, the place you should be. Last I checked, I'm still Yael Levi, and thank you for staying with us. Now, throughout this week, Israel is hosting an international conference organized by the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization. The Vienna-based watchdog group, which aims to ban nuclear tests, will be meeting to draw lessons from a recent on-site field exercise held in Jordan, which tested the preparedness of the equipment used by the group to monitor the globe for illegal nuclear tests. Among the participants will be delegates from Arab and Muslim states that don't have diplomatic relations with Israel. Israel itself, it is worth noting, is one of the 8 countries who have yet to ratify the 1996 Test Ban Treaty alongside the U.S., Iran, North Korea, China, Pakistan, India, and Egypt. Important to note, it has signed it but not ratified it. We are honored to be joined in studio by the Executive Secretary at the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, Dr. Lassina Zerbo. Dr. Zerbo, good morning, and thank you for being with us.
Morning, and thank you for having me.
The question on everyone's minds, I have to say, when it comes to the conference itself being held in Israel this week. First of all, the fact that it's being held in Israel, a country that has signed the 1996 treaty, that according to foreign reports, as stated, has nuclear capability, but has not ratified the agreement. Why is it held in Israel?
We're trying to help all countries who have signed the treaty to pursue the process towards ratification. And having this treaty, this workshop in Israel, send a signal to the region. Because this is a difficult region, if I can use this word, and we want.
Not only can you use it, that's the mild understatement.
Yeah. So what we want to do is to create the condition for peace, stability, and security here by helping states to pursue the ratification and then get us to the entry into force of this treaty.
Do you think Israel will ratify the agreement?
Look, if they wouldn't, why would they sign? If they sign, I think that's the first step already towards the ratification. Otherwise, you have the choice not to even sign.
No, it's a valid, true logic point. Logic doesn't usually work in the Middle East, but it's a logic point. It's a logical point. That's it. What is the focus then of the conference held in Israel this week?
The focus is to bring countries, not only from the region, but countries that have participated in the simulation exercise in Jordan, right, to draw lessons from what we've achieved and then where we go from now. And the other aspect is basically to get Israel, for us to deal with Israel concerns with regard to, how can they pursue the ratification of this treaty?
Of the treaty, which I think may be in question now, given negotiations going on with Iran, which is on everyone's mind. The biggest threats in terms of the nuclear, international nuclear activity, what would you say are the biggest threats the world is facing now?
The threat is how they control countries that are using nuclear energy to making sure that they don't go for military purpose. And this is basically what we're doing. Right. I think we are the last hurdle for countries that are trying to pursue the development of nuclear weapon.
Then I'm going to ask you the million-dollar question on everybody's mind if they live in this region. And that is, first of all, what would be the role of your organization, in the event in monitoring Iran's nuclear activity?
I think we're not focusing on a country. I think we're monitoring the world. We're monitoring underwater, in the air, underground. Any activity that is done in the search to developing nuclear weapon will be detected by us. That's basically what we do. And then we're not focusing on a specific country. We're treating the entire globe the same way, and I can assure you that we've now put together a deterrent that makes sure that no nuclear test goes undetected.
And what is that deterrent?
The deterrent is our international monitoring system.
Right.
It's a system of nearly 300 facilities, underwater, in the air, and underground, making sure that no event goes undetected. And we're doing this with the national technical means of our countries as well.
Such as the Korean test that your monitoring group detected last year.
Indeed, we detected all 3 announced Korean nuclear tests, and quite efficiently, and with a level of reliability too.
No, that is impressive, and I think in terms of being a watchdog in the world, I'm going to still bring it back to this region. You had a series of several high-profile meetings in Israel, including, I think, the intelligence minister. You're meeting with Tzipi Livni of the Zionist camp, of some political form in the future. But what do you glean from the meetings with Israeli officials being in this country? The concern about nuclear energy and nuclear capability goes across the region. But what do you glean from your meetings with the Israeli upper echelon of intelligence?
Look, what we're trying to do is to creating the condition for countries like Israel that have signed the treaty and not ratified yet, for them to feel comfortable, to feel at ease with regard to their own national security and how this treaty helped that context. And that's basically
what are those conditions, for example, for Israel to feel comfortable to ratify the agreement?
Israel wants to make sure that our international monitoring system is effective, reliable, and then can make sure when there is an event in this region, we can pinpoint with efficiency and effectiveness which country has done it, rather than speculating where this event is coming from. That's one aspect.
No, it's one aspect. When we're looking at the countries that have signed the agreement but not ratified it, it's not just Israel at the end of the day, right?
No, it's not. In this region, we have Egypt, and then we have Iran.
And exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, the main two key players, and also across the world, it's main powers that everybody knows should be, have signed the agreement but not ratified it.
Indeed.
Why in your mind do you think these big countries that actually are the big key players are not ratifying this agreement?
Look, let me start. You've mentioned the United States as an example.
Exactly.
I think President Obama has stated clearly that it is his intention to take this treaty to ratification. But I mean, we are in democracy in many of those countries, and then you need the numbers in your Senate or Parliament or Congress to pursue ratification.
Right.
And the fact that this treaty has been one of the longest and hardest fought treaty in history,
sure,
we have to make sure that we don't rush. We have to make sure we create the conditions that are right for the ratification, because if we miss that now, it will put us 50 years back, and we don't want that. I think we've come a long way. We're moving forward. We have 183 countries that have signed the treaty, 164 that have ratified. The treaty is nearly universal, if not universal. So what I want is to make sure the 8 remaining countries equally are in condition to secure the ratification with their constituencies, and that's what we're working on.
Okay, I mean, time will tell. You're very optimistic. Just at the end of the day, it's 1996, and it's almost 20 years.
20 years.
It's 20 years.
It's 20 years, and I mean, this is what I'm telling the international community. What do you want to do with this treaty? Tell us. It's been 20 years. We need to move. We need political leadership, because we think we've created the condition to show that this treaty is verifiable by an international monitoring system that is effective.
And it doesn't worry you that with all the things that are going on right now around the world, such as the framework agreement with Iran, that scares Israel very much, or other parties within the Middle East, that actually ratifying this agreement by the countries who should be ratifying it has been pushed actually backwards?
Look, talking about Iran, I was personally of the view that what we could have done was engaging with the Iranian to pursue the ratification of the CTBT. Why? Because this, for me, is the only assurance with teeth that the program is for peaceful use.
Right.
Because if you ratify the CTBT, you're engaging and you're saying never to nuclear testing in your search to developing nuclear weapon. So that's a step that we could have come through long ago.
Yeah. But time will tell. I mean, first of all, it's good to hear you being very optimistic, not just Iran, but I think all the countries, the main countries, and we know who we're talking about, for them to ratify it would make it a brave new world. But hopefully it'll happen, and not within another 20 years. Dr. Lassia Zerba, thank you so much for being here. We're going to move along to something completely different. That I hope that you stay with us, because it's slightly different than nuclear testing.
Okay. Just a bit.
Slightly. Okay. That would be the spiral viral that is the web review. Yes, that's a quick turn. And on another nuclear issue, Madonna.
Well, before Madonna,
okay.
we're going to talk about a little food first.
Of course.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I love my pasta, and I love it with really good Parmesan cheese. But in Israel, it's pretty hard to get good Parmesan cheese, because most of it is kosher in the supermarket.
That's awful.
And that is actually not real.
Not the real
it's
Parmesan.
Not real Parmesan. It's literally not the real thing.
I promise you, we do interesting, serious news here.
In fact, the last time the real kosher Parmesan was made was up until 2011 by a small family in Italy. But the good news is that we saw that Harrods is bringing is that there are going to be 2 new cheesemakers in Italy that are going to make some new, real, authentic kosher Parmesan made by the real strict guidelines that the Italian provinces require.
They promised this about Manischewitz. Don't you?
Parmesan is a different ball game.
It's a different ball game. It sounds kind of like kosher bacon.
It is. Well,
it is,
you might be
which
right.
is yeah.
It's the
a
king
contradiction
of
in
it's the king of
terms.
Italian cheeses, and it's
No, more power to them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I hope
more
the
power.
Pope will ratify this.
So by the end of this year, we'll probably have some kosher, real, authentic Parmesan to put on our pasta.
Inshallah.
Hopefully in Israel. That's
Hopefully,
the market that
there you
they're
go.
working for.
Yeah, and you will test it.
And
Moving along.
now you want to go to Madonna.
I
of
have to go
course,
to Madonna.
Which this is a story that's I call the kiss that broke the web.
Okay.
I don't know if you. I used to go to festivals in my youth, and the thing these years is called Coachella. And in a concert that Drake closed the Coachella festival with, Madonna came out on stage and gave him a real kiss. I want to see your reaction to this.
Okay.
If we
Let's
do have
take
a clip of
look.
this.
We do have a clip. Let's take a look.
Bitch, don't hang your shit on me.
Madonna. Okay, I'm
Okay. Now,
that looks like a really painful one. First of all, why does she keep kissing people?
Well,
do you know that this has been going on?
she does
throughout
that.
the-
She did with
She
Britney.
did with Britney,
She did it
exactly.
with
She
who
did with
else?
Britney. It's like enough. It's becoming pathetic.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that he doesn't look too happy after this
No,
one,
he
does he?
doesn't look too happy. He looks like she either bit his tongue.
Yeah.
Or that looks like a very painful root canal.
Yeah, this
yes,
thing-
Dr. Zerber, you were never going to want to leave after this one. But why does she keep kissing people?
I guess she
Yeah.
thinks it's good for her career, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
no,
but
it's getting nasty. It's getting nasty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it didn't go down well on the web as well.
No, it didn't, huh?
It didn't. No,
and
she
that's
got
the
a
only
lot
thing
of.
that people are dealing with right
The
now.
only thing.
It's
Oh,
always
that's
gone
what
viral.
everybody's talking
Well,
about.
it's still working for her then. We got to say that. But
On to another duo of singers who one of them is coming to Israel very soon, Robbie Williams.
Yes. Sorry.
Robbie Williams, but managed to anger a legend from Led Zeppelin, who I am also a Led Zeppelin fan, called Jimmy Page, the guitarist of Led Zeppelin.
Yes.
He was going to build a basement kind of like under Jimmy Page's property. And
Really?
Jimmy Page got really angry about that. He didn't like that. And it got all public and everything. It got kind of ugly. And Robbie Williams said, okay, I'm backing down. I'll submit some new plans, and peace will come to our neighborhood.
Well, listen, if this works for them, maybe it'll work for the Middle East.
Right.
You know,
I can only imagine it's a pretty noisy neighborhood.
Noisy, you gotta say, yeah. The troubles of the rich and famous.
Exactly.
Yeah, Crimea River. And
off to a book. The Telegraph brings us this story of a book that's been around already for 10 years, but is now topping the list of books that are requested off of shelves in libraries and schools.
I love this.
Because this book is called And Tango Makes Three. It's based on a true story. The people are saying that it promotes a homosexual agenda. The true story is that in a New York Central Park Zoo, there were two penguins called Roy and Silo, who became a couple in 1998. And when
I think that's lovely.
when another penguin had an extra egg that they couldn't to look after, the zookeeper gave them the egg to look after it, and they brought this kid up who was called Tango. And Tango Makes Three. But there are a lot of people in the States who are not too happy about this book, which is already celebrating its 10th anniversary.
And this is a true story.
It's a true story based on,
About
real
Tango, so many things to say that I will,
Right.
And one last one.
One last one is another video. The anti-vaccination group, is getting a lot of.
Yes.
People are getting pretty angry with them, and one group decided to tackle their kind of ridiculous claims about whether vaccinations work or not, was with a kind of hilarious video
on BuzzFeed,
based on the really strange claims. So
okay,
let's take a look.
Viral again. This is BuzzFeed.
It kind of speaks for itself.
Okay.
Oh, I've got sunblock, Mandy. Oh no, that's poison for your skin. Just because you give your children pants, that doesn't mean it's the right decision for everybody.
I don't believe in microwaves. My son used one and now he's gay.
Wait. Aren't you afraid of how many toxins are in that? It's water. Yeah, bottle.
I want to say my son used one and now he's a penguin.
Right,
but yeah,
right,
there's
exactly.
that. No, but I think that's actually, I got to speak as, of course, I'm harping on this so much, on the motherhood. I'm sorry, the anti-vaccination maniacs.
Yeah,
Come on.
Yeah, they're quite absurd. And I think this is a really nice way of how to tackle some of their
things that
with humor and show
to
how absurd they are. It's a really nice way to do it.
No, completely. And one more. We do have time.
We do have time for one more.
Yes.
Okay, quickly. A few weeks ago, there was a story about a kid who fell into a cheetah cage in a zoo in the States, and it just was recently.
Oh my God! She Michael Jacksoned her kid.
Thank you. You just took it right out of my mouth. It was just reported by the Washington Post that she was holding the kid over the fence apparently. just dangling
Yeah.
there. And,
I
and
guess
suddenly he slipped and fell into it. And he broke a leg, by the way. And
he wasn't lunch, luckily.
Right.
No, but I have to say, do they need those signs now in zoos? Is that the next thing? You know, do not feed the cheetahs and don't dangle your babies.
Apparently, there are some people that need to have those signs.
Who need to have those signs.
Well, the mother might face 6 months in jail, and she'll be able to read a lot about.
I would bring I'd bring the toddler to the, or maybe the cheetah should be growing. He should be raising the toddler. Ami, thank you. Food
My
for
pleasure.
thought. Yes,
My pleasure.
Dr. Zerbo, thank you for being with us. Good luck on the mission of having that ratified. Do stay with us because when we get back, it's the news of the day. It's the Kardashians. You have to be with us. They're here in studio. Maybe first the news. Welcome back. I-24 News on this April 14th, 2015, where we have an exclusive in the studio. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are here with us.
Am I Kanye?
Actually,
well, she just dyed her hair to blonde,
exactly.
and then she went back to brunette.
So yes, we tried to get Kanye and Kim Kardashian.
Second best.
Way too busy.
They
way
asked
too busy
for a cab, and that we don't
sorry, that's out
allow.
of our budget.
Exactly.
Yeah, we do not have the budget for the cab, but we do have the budget for Michael Friedman here with the sports news of the week of the sports magazine. Yes, you pretty man. What do you have for us?
Arsenal, amazing team, really just been soaring in the last few weeks. Surprise story because they were really struggling early on in the season, and now they're looking like they could be title contenders.
I'm horrified. We have a piece about this,
do.
don't we? Let's have a look. Okay.
Despite Arsenal's poor start to the season, the Gunners have shifted gears and have recently been playing remarkable football for the world to see. Second in the Premier League, the team is soaring high, winning 11 of their last 12 matches. The only loss in that run was against Monaco in the Champions League round of 16. With 8 straight Premier League wins, they now have 66 points from 32 matches. And with 6 fixtures remaining, they trail their London rivals by 7 points, but Chelsea also have a game in hand. If Arsene Wenger's side hopes to surpass the Blues, they know they must be at their best and get a bit of help with the Chelsea collapse.
As I told you last week, nothing has changed, we are still too comfortable, Chelsea. We need a perfect run, and we need a non-perfect run from them. So we cannot master that, we can only master our attitude. I feel we are still in a comfortable position.
Arsenal's recent win against bottom of the table Burnley was another important victory in the title race. The Gunners have Chelsea in their sights, keeping the pressure up and taking each match one by one in the hope of capturing 2 pieces of silverware this season.
In the semi-final of the FA Cup, we have 6 games to go, we have 66 points, and we want to continue our run now.
Part of the recent success, which also saw Arsenal win the FA Cup last season, has been due to some big players. Wenger's ambition to take more titles has led him to finally spend more money. The last 2 high-profile signings were Mesut Ozil for £42 million and Alexis Sanchez for £35 million. Other big signings include Danny Welbeck and Callum Chambers for £16 million each and Oliver Giroud for £12 million. The Arsenal of today is leaving everyone in awe, and surely had they performed this way at the beginning of the season, we would have an even closer title race. But with hopes of landing its first Premier League title in over a decade, the team is leaving everything on the pitch. Whether the Gunners will be able to continue this perfect run and edge Chelsea for the title remains to be the question.
And we are back with the love affair that is Arsenal and Michael Friedman. So they're doing well.
They are doing well. I can't say that I'm happy about it.
I know you're not happy. That's why, as we say in our neck of the words, I just lifted for you to bring this down.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it is impressive. And I do enjoy good football, and what they're doing right now is impressive. They've won 10 of the last 11 matches.
Impressive? That's ridiculous.
8 straight Premier League matches. So when you look at what they've done and what they've accomplished recently, they really turned around their season. Obviously, they have great players. They spent a lot of money in the past couple of years, which is something that people were thinking, Wenger, he wasn't really doing that. They need to step it up. They have the money for it, and they're finally doing that, and that is part of the reason why they are playing better. But the same thing goes to, you know, the title race. It's something everyone wants to see, a close matchup. Chelsea are the favorites. They've been the favorites since the beginning. But right now, they are giving them a run for their money. They have, in 2 weeks from now, a match against one another.
Chelsea and Arsenal.
Arsenal is playing at home, so anything could happen.
Terrifying, Michael. What can happen there? What can happen there?
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. What else?
We have Real Madrid playing tonight against Atletico in the Champions League quarterfinal.
Jonathan Ruggers' favorite games.
He loves Atletico Madrid.
I know.
I just love seeing a good matchup. This is an interesting match because you have Atletico, who's kind of have been the better of the two teams in the recent matchups.
The underdog basically rising up. Well, not can't really call them an underdog.
Well,
right?
Atletico, yes, they are still like an underdog. Real Madrid has more money. They have more superstars. They are the defending champions. The two of them faced off against each other in the final last year. So
who won?
Who do you think?
I don't know.
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid. Okay.
But Atletico was 1 minute away from getting both La Liga and the Champions League. It would have been an incredible story for them. They did win La Liga, so they have some trophy from last year, and they're in the hunt. And you know, in the Champions League, anything can happen on any given day.
I was just looking at Chen Lieberman here, who is, you know, Chen Lieberman, who is
Chinese.
like, wow, anything can happen. Yay. Would that be it? Oh, we can see all of this on Talking Football, right?
Yes.
Right? Talking Football.
Every Monday and Tuesday at 7:40.
I would like you to plug this as much as you can as the Talking Football. Okay, so that would be Atletico and Real. Any other matches that we need to look at?
We have another match tonight as well. It's Juventus versus Monaco. Another interesting matchup. Monaco knocked out Arsenal. Despite Arsenal's great run, they weren't able to get past Monaco. And Juventus is atop of Italy, so two teams, either one can really go through. So it's another exciting one.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen, exactly.
It sounds like a spoof one does about how athletes talk about. You ever see a spoof about athletes talking about, you know, the game? Yeah, it was a good game. We fought hard. Well, anything can happen. They fought better. Yeah?
That's the love of the sport. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. And as anything can happen, seriously, you know, that's going to be the move. Anything can happen here. Take this. I'm throwing the script away. Because the Kardashians are in Israel, and Chen Lieberman is here with us.
And there's one thing that cannot happen, and that's a Kanye West show in Jerusalem. Turns out that Kanye West, thinking he's Jesus, wanted to perform last night in Jerusalem.
He does think he's Jesus.
He thinks he's Jesus.
No, he didn't make this
Jesus walks.
Jesus walked.
He can do it.
Kanye West, yeah.
So he tried to do this surprise show at 11 p.m. in Jerusalem, thinking that he can do that in Jerusalem. I mean, the thing is, he did it in Yerevan, in Armenia.
Yeah.
So in the capital of Armenia, he did it this weekend. So he
did it this weekend and was like singing, and people were storming him.
Yeah, and he got into the lake, into the water.
He was in like heaven.
I mean, I'm jealous of the Armenian people, but you can't do that in Israel, in Jerusalem.
West, that if you try to run into any place in Jerusalem, you will either be stoned, gunned. No, yeah.
I mean, so he tried to get the police approval for it, and he needs. So the police was like, "Really? You think you're gonna do that in Israel? We're not gonna let you." But people thought that it's gonna
happen in the Middle East before we're gonna let Kanye West sing for free in Jerusalem. God forbid we'll give the people of Israel. But hold on, let's go back to
let's see what he was able to do.
Look at that.
And that is baptizing Northwest, their 1-year-old daughter. So they brought her to the
22
Armenian.
months, mind you, 22 months.
22 months.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so they do Jerusalem, and I gotta say, she's clearly Kardashians. I want to say, I was asking Michael Friedman before if we can talk about this gift that the Armenian people are receiving after the Holocaust of their people. Is it too soon, Michael?
I think it's too soon.
Too soon. So they're coming here straight from Armenia, and they're going to the Armenian church to baptize Northwest. Now she's a formal, official Christian. Isn't that exciting?
Where better to do it than in Jerusalem?
No, but better than Jerusalem, in the Armenian church. North being a very good, traditional Armenian name.
But I have to say, seeing that little kid dealing with all the press, with all the paparazzi, with all the fans. I think it's traumatizing. I mean, it's not that I feel sorry for her, but I'm trying to figure out, is this responsible enough? Because we saw her getting into the car.
It's kind of like dangling your baby in front of a cheetah cage. Did you hear that story last week? But it's Michael Jacksoning your kids in many ways.
Yes.
It's Michael Jacksoning your kids, and it's very traumatic. Oh my God, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, so she's
too young for
inside
that.
all these people, and I don't know how she's going to grow up to be. That's going to be interesting. Northwest as an adult. I'm
Since the
very
name
curious.
itself, I'm trying to figure out.
I googled Northwest yesterday to see if she has a Wikipedia page. No, so I got Northwest.
Northwest, the Hitchcock,
the direction.
The direction, or the famous Hitchcock film. But speaking of, it's that Northwest. It's Gwyneth Paltrow. Another favorite, Apple.
And Moses.
And Moses. Apple. Not good, not good. Those kids will be beaten up.
Yes.
In preschool.
But they have bodyguards, so they won't be beaten up.
No, but I mean, there's all this talk about, I want to just touch a little bit about Kanye. They come to baptize their child. There was all this talk several weeks ago that they're looking to buy real estate in Israel.
So real estate agents, they just try to get more publicity, free publicity on this story, and that's what happened.
You're killing me here.
Yeah, that's what happened. So Kourtney Kardashian was interested in buying an apartment in Tel Aviv.
Stop. Kourtney Kardashian being
Kim's sister.
Okay.
She's in the reality show Keeping Up with the Kardashians that I've never watched myself. I have to
we are all
admit.
intelligent people. We're
Yes,
all intelligent people.
Let's stop establishing that.
We're definitely intelligent. We are intelligent people.
I wake up every day to watch that show.
Okay, so we're not
That's
all
an honest
intelligent
man.
people.
That's an honest
so Kourtney Kardashian, Kim's sister, not the one that is visiting with her. That's Khloe Kardashian. Khloe with a K, not C, because it's KKK.
Oh,
it's Kourtney, Kim,
Khloe.
And
that's bad.
And now it's Kanye as well.
KKK. 4Ks.
Quadruple K.
So we can't have a serious discussion. So So she wanted to buy an apartment here in Israel. She didn't eventually, but the real estate broker was talking to all the press, saying that he's managing her accounts here and that he's getting her an apartment.
Why would she even consider buying an apartment? Are they also into Kabbalah? Is it another K? By the way, is Kabbalah K or C? I don't know.
K.
There you go. It's all about the K. It's all about the K. So why buy an apartment in Israel? Who knows? That's people would argue.
Well, they're not. They're here for for 24 hours, and they're gonna shoot some stuff for the reality show that made them famous for no reason.
For no reason.
And then they're gonna continue to Jordan.
Kim Kardashian, who started as the assistant of Paris Hilton?
Wow, what?
Who started as the assistant of Paris Hilton?
That's not Kim Kardashian.
One of them did. No, isn't that their claim to fame?
That's not. No.
Even if I know, I wouldn't say.
I think. Well, there was a sex tape, and Paris Hilton had a sex tape, and Kim Kardashian had a sex tape.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what.
There's the connection there.
Maybe one of them was her assistant, and I just don't know that, and I'm proud of not knowing that.
Even if they are in Israel, they baptized their child. She is Armenian, and everybody.
But if we thought that it's getting a lot of coverage, like anything else that they do, it's not getting that much coverage. She did tweet tonight from Israel. So maybe now that she tweeted something, a picture from Israel, maybe that's gonna bring more coverage. But it's getting coverage here in Israel. It's not getting coverage outside.
Well, maybe the world is smarter than us. That said, we're gonna move to lighter stuff. Not to lighter stuff. Gunter Grass, real quick, honey.
Yeah, well, that's
moving away from the Kardashians,
wow,
Michael. Away from the Kardashians.
Weird
really? I want to stay with Kardashians.
To an age where people were famous for what they had to say, right?
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, I know it sounds very righteous what I'm saying.
Be righteous, be righteous.
I mean, Marilyn Monroe was also famous not for what she had to say, but she had some talent, right? And
Marilyn
Kim
Monroe was talented. Marilyn Monroe was actually quite talented.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Gunter Grass, the German novelist, which I think he embodies the conflict because he was the loudest critic
of
Nazi Germany with the tin drum and also articles and poems that he wrote. But then in 2006, he admitted to be a part of the Waffen-SS. Waffen-SS.
Yeah.
It's not waffles.
No, it's not waffles.
So the Waffen-SS, which was the multinational military arm of Nazi Germany. Germany. And when he confessed being part of the Waffen-SS, that's when the criticism started coming, because he won Nobel Prize.
Israel critic.
And we'll get to that soon, but if we have the time.
Yes.
But and that raises the question whether a person's past hurts his legitimacy of criticizing that past.
So one cannot make comparisons, and I think it's really hard to touch anything when it comes to the Holocaust, not just sitting in the country that we're sitting here.
Right.
But it's a fascinating, it's a very important question. Does your past delegitimize everything? Or maybe his past was something that led him to write all this criticism.
Of course it did.
Exactly.
I mean,
so it's looking at it from that point
and the
of view.
fact that he hid it, that also raises the question.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't,
but I don't think in the future that's
no
going to
one
be a
would
problem,
listen.
because you can't hide anything these days.
Right.
Look at Kanye West.
And although he was a critic of Nazi Germany, it didn't prevent him from also criticizing Israel.
Right.
And that's actually something that I appreciate, because just dealing with the guilt feelings.
Those two are not mutually exclusive. I think that's the thing that people, it's very hard for people to accept that.
But of course, for some Israelis, hearing criticism from someone that was part of the Waffen-SS, that was, hey, you're not allowed to express any criticism.
That's too soon.
What was that criticism? Let's talk about the criticism.
Sorry, Michael here just chimed in with that's too soon.
Oh, okay. So he published an article, What Must Be Said, about Israel's policy against Iran, the nuclear activities
and whatnot
in Israel,
as opposed to.
And he said that Israel endangers the world peace. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, he clinged on to that specific sentence, saying that he's an anti-Semite and that it's illegitimate to say that Israel endangers the world peace. But he said that.
But either way, I know. Either way, Gunter Grass.
Iran,
I know. But we can agree. And Gunter Grass, a formidable intellectual and writer, can agree, love him or hate him.
And go watch the Tin Drum.
Or
read the book.
Folks, all the time we had, though, I-24 News, those were Kim Kardashian right here and Kanye West with us in studio. Do check us out on all the social networks. Tune in tomorrow morning. All the time we had today. Stick around for the news.